Do you feel overwhelmed by what is happening in the world or your personal life? As the energies and friction are intensifying during this time of transition and bifurcation, there are various choices most people make, consciously or unconsciously, and to varying degrees, which I'll be sharing with you in this video. These choices can also overlap and are just a general outline. So be honest with yourself and observe where you can see yourself in them. At the end of this video, I will also give you some practical suggestions on how to navigate these times to stay grounded and aligned. My name is Bernhard Gunther. I'm a writer, psycho-spiritual coach, and host of the Cosmic Matrix podcast. You can find out more about my work relating to spirituality, psychology, esotericism, hyperdimensional realities, and much more on my website, veilofreality.com. So let's get into the different choices many people make during this time of transition on conscious or unconscious levels. If you want to learn more about what this time of transition is all about and you're new to my work, check out my previous videos linked in the description below and go to my website. Number 1, resistance. You resist the planetary changes underway and outwardly project your own internal discomfort onto others, the world, and your situations, also called shadow projection, getting caught up in the trap of blaming, complaining, reactive mechanical behavior, and victim consciousness. All of which are responses that the Matrix forces want and feed off of, while it drains your own life force and inner power. It is the trap of the external reactive revolutionary mindset without inner alignment. Number 2, escapism. In order to resist the internal discomfort and friction, you may try to escape it via numbing yourself with distractions and addictions. This could be anything from drugs, including cannabis, porn, social media, video games, to exercising, food, gossiping, intellectualizing, and so on, creating an artificial happiness so as to avoid feeling the internal friction and unpleasant emotions. Now, addiction in this context is any behavior you engage in repeatedly and compulsively to get more dopamine hits to avoid feeling so-called negative emotions such as anger, sadness, fear, shame, guilt, and so on. These unacknowledged feelings will only get pushed more into the unconscious, creating a denser shadow which will have detrimental effects in the long run. Number 3, spiritual bypassing. This distraction numbing program can also include a spiritual opiate, getting hooked on pop spiritual and New Age teachings, which result in spiritual bypassing and thus overestimating your level of embodiment and awareness. Now, what is spiritual bypassing, you may ask? Maybe you've heard about it. The term spiritual bypassing was first coined by John Wellwood in 1984. In a nutshell, it is the use of spiritual practices and beliefs to avoid dealing with our painful feelings, unresolved wounds, and developmental needs. We engage in spiritual bypassing when we bypass necessary basic psychological work, such as trauma and shadow work, and believing ourselves to be more self-aware than we actually are, and thus overestimate our state or level of being. Spiritual bypassing also relates to intellectualizing higher spiritual truths and ideas and concepts, thereby distorting or diluting them to avoid facing our blind spots, conditioned personality, or evil in the world. For example, all is one is true from a higher perspective, but it doesn't imply that we are all the same. Spiritual bypassing also reveals itself when we judge negative emotions as something bad or unspiritual, believing that being spiritual means always to be nice, positive, smiling, happy, non-confrontational, all of which most often results in a fake persona, lack of boundaries, and reality avoidance. You can also abuse certain spiritual and meditation techniques to check out, numb yourself, and get out of body, creating an artificial sense of bliss, which is actually a disassociated state. There's also the trap of taking off the old ego identity and developing a new spiritual identity instead. Engaging in spiritual bypassing, the wounded ego is very tempted to use concepts like star seeds, indigos, or light worker to identify with in order to feel special and mask up unconscious trauma and insecurity that most often directly relates to one's childhood and upbringing. Now, important to note, it doesn't imply that there's no truth to these concepts, as I explored in my article Wanderer's Purpose and Esoteric Work in this time of transition, linked below. But the ego is always lurking in the back to hijack these labels for its own agenda. Spiritual bypassing can also result in looking for a quick fix or magic pill, which are all very common in today's fast food spirituality. All of that can have detrimental effects on your inner development, making you dream that you are awake but you're in fact still asleep, as Gurdjieff pointed out, and creating what is called in esoteric science a false foundation that can crumble at any time. This numbing or impatient fast-track approach often results in people getting disassociated, caught up in head-centric living, cutting themselves off from their body and internal guidance systems, their intuition and gut feeling, and hence they become more impressionable and suggestible to outside influences, especially subliminal matrix programming as well as hyperdimensional interference, looking for guidance outside themselves. They may also mistake their feelings, projections, triggers, thoughts, and certain impressions for their intuition. The process of awakening, which is really about getting in contact with our true self in essence, as opposed to the personality we tend to identify with. This process cannot be rushed, no skips can be skipped, and we don't really get to move on until we learn our particular lessons, which are different for each of us. All of this is occurring from a soul perspective, which your mind and ego cannot fully perceive and understand, and in fact is afraid of and actively resists. Now, very important, the other choice to make and opportunity to seize in light of conscious soul evolution during this time of transition in alignment with your higher self's purpose and divine will is to ride the wave of change so you don't get tumbled under. What this means is 1. Transmutation. You enter the alchemical fire of transmutation consciously without resisting the resulting discomfort via a sincere engagement with self-work and embodiment practices on a holistic, integral level, combining both psychological and spiritual work, as well as seeking truth, while letting everything that is in the way of reconnecting you to who you truly are burn away. It entails piercing through the many masks of social and cultural programming and personality identification, so as to open your heart to its connection with the divine and your unique purpose that's found on an embodied soul level. Number 2. Transformation. This work is essentially about transforming your ego into a healthy vessel for spirit to work through you, so that you are not influenced by external suggestions or internal conditioning, which may result in mechanical and reactive behaviors. Number 3, individuation and boundaries. It is important to note that the non-resistance I just spoke of in this context doesn't imply that you avoid standing up for yourself or that you remove healthy boundaries and put up with abuse. It's about letting go of any resistance to the internal friction of evolution while still resisting the thought injections resulting in self-defeating reactive behaviors and concurrent influences and temptations which are attempts by the matrix forces to lock your thought waves into its frequency. Being able to establish healthy boundaries and cultivating discernment with regards to who we surround ourselves with is a key element of emancipation and individuation during this time of transition, alongside with the ability to avoid falling into the trap of blind compassion. In this process of transmutation and transformation, we need to allow ourselves to feel all feelings, but without externalizing them, which basically means not blaming others for the way you feel and not identifying with them, which is at first much easier said than done. So here are some practical tips that can also be challenging at first. I recommend doing this exercise when you're at home and something has come up and triggered you, and instead of checking out mindlessly, browsing the internet for example, or numbing yourself or distracting yourself or all kinds of things, do the following. Sit down in a comfortable position and close your eyes. Get into your body via putting your awareness on your breath and then your body. Feel any sensations in your body that are predominant. Many of us are so armored up, disassociated and caught in the head with constant thought loops that we have lost our connection and somatic felt sense to our bodies and hence our deeper emotions. As you feel the sensations in your body, focus on the area where you feel anything sticky, tight, dense, hot or cold. It could be in the heart area, the gut, the throat, really anywhere in the body. As you focus on the sensation, emotions may rise up. Allow yourself to feel them without identifying with them, labeling them, judging them, analyzing them, or trying to change them. That's the most important part of this exercise. Again, no labels, no judgment as in good or bad, no analysis, and not trying to change anything. We are talking about core feelings like anger, sadness, grief, guilt, shame, fear. Not identifying with them means not saying or thinking, I am angry or I am sad, because the truth is you're not that. But you're experiencing sadness or anger and so on flowing through you. It is not who you are on a core level in your essence, so don't identify with them, but at the same time allow yourself to feel them. Again, that's easier said than done at the beginning. Do not attach any story or label to them. That may also be easier said than done, for the mind automatically wants to interfere and give a reason to the emotion. But the key point of this exercise is to just allowing yourself to feel without analyzing, justifying, rationalizing, and without trying to fix or get rid of anything. Trust your somatic body intelligence that it knows what to do as you allow your body to be its own healer. If you need to move in any way, follow the movement, shake it out, dance it out, or whatever you need to do to express the emotions somatically through body movements. That's totally okay. If you need to cry, allow yourself to cry. Listen to your body, and most important, allow yourself to feel. After a while going through this processing exercise, come back to your sitting position you had at the beginning. Notice how you feel after this exercise and what has shifted within you. Maybe there's still some residue which you can revisit at another time. It's important to know that most often the fear of feeling certain emotions is way worse than actually feeling them, because if we fully feel them, we transmute them and let them go. Many of us have emotions stuck in the body from past experiences, even past lives, or even everyday stress, which we never allowed ourselves to experience and feel to completion. Maybe there were times it was not safe to feel them, and that's fine. We had to suppress them. It has its function. Depending on many factors, you may need to get more practice to get into your body and allow yourself to feel feelings you may have suppressed, avoided, or armored up. However, be gentle with yourself. Do not force anything. Be compassionate and loving to yourself, forgiving and embracing. Seek help if you need it. Journal about it. Express yourself and be good to yourself. Give yourself a hug and say a little prayer to the divine if you feel inclined to. I also suggest immersing yourself in water after this exercise. It's a good energetic cleanse as well, be it a hot bath or a shower. Ideally, a salt bath, and scrub yourself with salt in the shower. Much love to you, and know that the divine loves you. Godspeed.